Hello and welcome to my multimedia presentation on transfer of learning and instructional design. Transfer is defined as the ability to extend what has been learned in one context to new contexts. Assumptions about transfer accompany belief that it is better to broadly educate people than simply train them to perform particular tasks. The purpose of this multimedia presentation is to talk about transfer and creating trainings in a corporate setting. Some principles of transfer to keep in mind that we will be discussing in this presentation. Knowledge that is overly contextualized can reduce transfer. Abstract representations of knowledge can help promote transfer. Initial learning is necessary for transfer. Transfer is best viewed as an active dynamic process rather than a passive end product of a particular set of learning experiences. And all new learning involves transfer based on previous learning. So let's talk about abstraction. When creating an e-learning or a training of any kind, it's important to remember that making something too overly contextualized will make it difficult to transfer this learning to new contexts or to new settings or to new areas of the workplace. So let's pretend that you are creating a new training, and for example, maybe you're training some new employees who are going to be phone agents. You create a scenario where a customer calls in with a specific problem, and then you demonstrate how that conversation should flow, what questions might be asked, how the response should be. The problem with this is that when you make it too contextual like this and too specific, it's going to make it very difficult for your trainees to be able to apply what they learned from this presentation to actual scenarios that they might have in the workplace itself and on their daily problems. So being too contextualized means you're making it too narrow for employees to be able to transfer what they have learned to new scenarios. If you look at the chart to the bottom right here, you'll see that you've got a scenario you may have used in training to train your employees in how they should respond to certain calls or to whatever the problem or scenario might be that you're trying to train them on, and there could be an innumerable number of deviations from that scenario. When there's a deviation from what you have trained, it's going to be difficult for your employees to transfer what they learned from that training to the new scenario or to the deviation of that scenario and to properly apply what they have learned. So how do we fix this? It's important to make what you are teaching more abstract. What does that mean? Well, making things more abstract means that you're focusing on principles and not just specific tasks. It means you're teaching subjects in multiple contexts. It means you're demonstrating what you are teaching in a wide application instead of narrowly defined tasks. And you can do this by using problem-based learning as well as incorporating variations of these problems that you are teaching, including using what-if scenarios, meaning you ask your employees, well, here's a scenario we're talking about here, but what if this would happen? Or what if you don't have this available? Or what if this comes up? All in all, what you're doing is you're making a broad application of these principles, making them more abstract, again, focusing on principles, not just tasks, all of which enhances and promotes transfer of learning. Talking about initial learning, this may seem intuitive. Trainees must first master a subject before transfer of learning can occur. This means that they will need sufficient time to learn the material. It means they must know enough about a topic and understand enough about a topic initially and enough about those principles of the topic to form a basis of understanding and learning, which will make it easy for them to transfer this learning to new contexts and scenarios. If they don't understand the basics, they won't be able to transfer their learning to deviations of different scenarios that may come up in the actual workplace. Transfer is actually an active process. People need to be motivated to learn. They need to understand why it is they're learning what they are and how it can benefit them. This learning must be directed and prompted through giving proper scaffolding, asking the proper questions through graduated prompting. What if this would happen? What would you do in this scenario? How would you handle if that happened? Appropriate feedback must be given throughout. Trainees must be able to actively monitor their learning through different metacognitive strategies, being able to monitor what they're understanding, what they're not understanding, how they're progressing through the training, and to be able to get proper questions, feedback, as well as debriefing as it may come up. And finally, previous learning. Trainees, while being taught, will bring previous knowledge they have to the table, whether it's through cultural experiences, through things they already understand about what's being taught, things they picked up through their school learning, through their degree, or through what they've already learned in the workplace. It's important to build on that foundational knowledge that they already have, as well as understand that previous knowledge that they may be bringing to the table may also affect their transfer of learning. It may make it difficult for them to implement new ideas or to understand new concepts because of previous paradigms they may already have. And you need to remember that when creating trainings and learning, that to be able to properly promote transfer, you need to build on previous knowledge and help your trainees overcome the obstacles they may have based on previous understanding that they may have gained. So in summary, to cap with the 4 principles we've talked about to help promote transfer of learning, you want to make sure that what you're teaching is not overly contextualized, but that you're talking about principles, making things abstract to help promote transfer. Talk about a wide spectrum of how what you're teaching can be promoted. You need to help focus on the initial learning, making sure that the principles are being understood very well to begin with and that there's proper time for them to learn. Transfer is an active process, and that all new learning involves transfer based on previous learning. So if you keep these things in mind in your trainings that you create, it will make it easier for employees to transfer what they have been taught to new scenarios and contexts.